Judy Garland's hidden pain. Long before the world saw her skip down the yellow brick road as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, Judy Garland was a small, fragile girl named Frances Gum, born into a family that performed in dusty theaters across small American towns. Her voice was already beautiful, even as a child, pure and haunting. But behind that gift, there was a heavy price. She grew up under the bright lights of the stage, but those lights were never warm. They burned, they blinded. They demanded perfection from a little girl who just wanted to be loved. Her parents pushed her to perform because it was the only way they knew to survive. She learned to smile, even when she was tired, to sing, even when her throat ached, and to hide her tears behind makeup. When she was only 13 years old, she was signed by MGM Studios, one of the biggest names in Hollywood. The studio promised her a golden future, but instead it trapped her in a cage made of glamour and fear. At MGM, she was told she was not pretty enough, not thin enough, not perfect enough. They called her their little hunchback. Because she had slightly rounded shoulders, they made her wear tight corsets and forced her to diet constantly. Sometimes they even took her food away or gave her pills to stop her appetite. By the time she was 16, she was taking pills to stay awake and pills to fall asleep. Her life was not her own. She was a product of brand, a face for the studio to control. When she played Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, the world fell in love with her. Her smile, her voice, her innocence, it all seemed magical. But few knew that while she sang somewhere over the rainbow, she was crying inside. She once said that she felt like she lived her whole life behind someone else's curtain, pretending to be happy for the audience. The success of the film made her a star, but it also made her a prisoner. MGM continued to control every part of her life, deciding who she could date, how she should look, even what she should think. They fed her more pills to keep her working longer hours. Sometimes she would work 16 hours a day and collapse backstage. Her body was breaking and her spirit fading, yet every time the camera turned on, she smiled, as if nothing was wrong. As she grew older, the pressures only increased. Hollywood loved her voice, but not her truth. She began to feel lost, unable to tell where Judy, the actress, ended and Judy, the woman, began. She was constantly told she had to be perfect, and when she failed, she punished herself with guilt and shame. The same system that had made her famous was slowly destroying her from within. Her relationships suffered too. She married several times, searching for love, but never finding peace. The men she trusted often took advantage of her fame or left her when she needed them most. She once said that love to her felt like another performance, something she had to rehearse and get right or lose forever. By the 1950s, her addiction to pills had become a disease. She was exhausted and broken. Hollywood no longer wanted her. They called her difficult, unreliable, washed up. But she refused to give up. She turned to live performances, singing in theaters and concert halls around the world. Her voice, now deeper and filled with pain, became a mirror of her life. The audience could feel her sadness in every note. When she sang, they cried because they knew she was not just performing, she was surviving. One of her most famous performances came at Carnegie Hall in 1961. It was called The Greatest Night in Show Business History. She sang like a woman reborn, pouring her heart into every lyric that night. For those few hours, she was free, not controlled by a studio, not by pills, not by pain, just Judy and her audience, connected by truth. But after the lights went out, the loneliness returned. She struggled financially, often living in small apartments or hotels. Despite her fame, she never found stability. She tried to rebuild her career on television and in concerts, but her health continued to decline. She was haunted by depression, anxiety, and the fear of being forgotten in her final years. She said she felt like she had lived 1,000 lives, but never her own. In 1969, at the age of 47, Judy Garland was found dead in her London apartment. Her death was ruled an accidental overdose. But those who knew her said she had been tired of fighting. She had spent her entire life trying to make the world happy, while silently drowning in her own sadness. The girl who sang of rainbows had spent her whole life chasing one she could never reach. Yet, Judy Garland's story is not just a tragedy. It is also a story of extraordinary courage. She fought against a cruel system that exploited her, yet she gave the world something unforgettable. Her voice became a symbol of hope. Her pain turned into art that touched millions. She taught generations that even in the darkest times, there can be beauty and truth. Today, when people watch The Wizard of Oz, they still see her as Dorothy, innocent and full of wonder. But behind that little girl was a woman who carried the weight of impossible expectations and yet continued to shine. Her story reminds us that fame can hide great suffering, that behind every perfect smile may lie a storm of pain. Judy Garland lived her life on stage, but her real performance was surviving in a world that never allowed her to rest. Her courage, her vulnerability, and her voice still echo through time, telling us that somewhere over the rainbow dreams may come true, but even their hearts can still break.